Lisa, I know you just had a root canal and it's hard to smile. So instead, just give me a half smile, something that's subtle, sensuous, sphinx-like, mysterious. That's right. Now just hold that for a while I talk to these kind people here that have come to visit us. I am Leonardo, the Sir Piero da Vinci. My spirit has come here today to tell you about my life and my many accomplishments in painting, art, architectural and anatomical drawings, mechanical engineering, sculpting, drafting, sketching, math, and in engineering designs for civil engineering as well as military engineering. Many call me the definition of the ideal Renaissance humanist man because I was the embodiment of a new rebirth of knowledge some 500 years ago in northern Italy. I was born out of wedlock on April 15, 1452 in Ancione, Tuscany, near Vinci, and 18 miles from Florence. My dad, Persero, was an attorney, landlord, and notary. My mom, Katrina, was a peasant girl. They never married. Later on, my mom married an artist, and my dad married 4 times. So I was raised on my dad's estate with my stepmom until the age of 5, and then I was transferred over to Uncle Francesco, who lived in Vinci, and stayed along with my 9 half-brothers and 3 half-sisters there, and was considered a legitimate child. I got along with them for a while. I was living with them for 10 years, and I had a lot of wonderful social skills that made me easy and amiable to be with. This is my childhood home that you can visit. At an early age, I painted a shield and attached dead animal parts to it. It smelled, but people liked it. I had a normal education of the day, and at age 15, showing some talent in art, I was apprenticed to leading Florentine painter Andrea del Verrocchio. And with him, I was a studio boy, or a garzon, where I would paint background figures and minor figures in my master's works. There at his workshop, I was trained, along with others, in technical mechanical skills, hydraulics, painting, sculpting, and the proportions, especially, there at his workshop for years. My first painting was 1472, the Annunciation, which has my trademark style. It goes around in a circle, follow your eyes, along with a hazy background, strong geometric shapes like rectangles, and this is actually my mom. In that same year, when I was 20, I was accepted into the Guild of St. Luke for doctors and artists to learn a trade or a profession. When I was 23, I helped my master paint this figure here, a kneeling angel. My master was so impressed with it, as the myth goes, he was so humbled he refused to paint again. But that's a myth. I declined guild membership and stayed on with my master for years, working on a lot of technical apparatuses like hydraulics and water wheels, and I became independent, but still with him. I accepted my first commission when I was 29 in 1481 from the Church of San Donato for the Adoration of the Magi, a large 8-foot wooden panel. And here's my drawings for it. You can see my geometric shapes. Look at the lines here. And that's how I did this triangle. And I got half done, but I didn't complete it. So is unfinished art still art? The answer is no, it's incomplete. This is what I would have a problem in life with. Unfinished work because of my procrastination, my tendency to do this, and there are wars, regime changes, and deterioration of materials. And in addition, in this case, I wanted to work for the Duke of Milan. I wanted him to be my sponsor. He was up here in North Italy. His name was Ludovico Sforza. And I wanted him to be my patron. He was interested in a military engineer because he was a strong man and had a fiefdom. So I sent him a resume, what I can do. First resume ever. That I could build these light portable bridges and had covered vehicles and use of cannons, and I could tunnel beneath castle walls. He accepted me, and this still stands today, the Castello Sforzesca in Milan, an ancient walled fortress where a couple hundred of us were there, including me. And in the back there would be fields here to grow crops, blacksmith shops, clockmakers, wheelwrights, stables. There were warring city-states at the time. And I was entranced by Sforza's court, as he was patron to many sophisticated people of the time, and painters and artists like me. And in the Royal Register of the court, I was deemed as an engineer and a painter with him. And I was in charge of these medieval festivals, these holiday festivals. I would make costumes, make sceneries, be like the man behind the curtain, glad-handing people, making sure things went fine. Matter of fact, I was highly esteemed. I was not a threat because I didn't hit up on the women of the court. I was like an entertainer. And at a wedding for John Sforza and Isabella at the Feast of Paradise, I made this automata called Mask of the Planets, where if you twirl this knob clockwise, the planets would rotate around Earth. This was our known universe at the time. Or something like this, geocentric view. Also, I make other contraptions for the court, like this self-propelled cart, which is propelled by wind-up gears. A boy would sit on it from behind a curtain, and then the gears would be wound up and let go. And then it would come out on its own, and he'd steer it in front of others. It was a marvelous invention. People loved it. Actually, the potential energy became kinetic energy, this self-propelled cart. I'll also show them many different designs I was working on. People were very interested in it, as I was like the Merlin of the court. I'd show them all these wonderful things. I was with him for 17 years and made 6 paintings. One of them was Virgin of the Rocks, which shows my style. Again, a circular motion with the Virgin Mary highlighting her son, baby Jesus, who's blessing a baby St. John. And one of my trademark signature things was a background called sfumato, which is the blending of the darkness in the back. See, I believe in kingdom come and all the colors lead into one. Let me show you how that goes with my portrait of Leonardo da Vinci. You see how the hair goes into here? So the background is not important, but the foreground it is, and this is what highlights this. It's called sfumato, or an ambiguous, hazy, smoke-filled background. Fume means smoke in Latin. And also I had bellatura, which is a glazing technique that I would, where a thin transparent layer of paint is applied over a dry layer to highlight figures. You can also do it on walls. So this is I am in my early 20s. And in 1482, when I was 30, the Sforza clan wanted me to create the world's largest bronze equestrian statue in the world in honor of Francisco Sforza, founding member of the clan. And I had an idea of the horse rearing up on its back legs with its front paws up in the air like this. And it took me 12 years to do this, and I made sketches doing this, on and off working on it, on and off working on it. You see the thick neck and the legs. And I made a clay model according to size, 16 feet tall. It was displayed at a wedding for Emperor Maximilian, but the bronze was repurposed to make cannons. And the clay model was destroyed in the war. This wasn't done, but the city of Milan has made something according to my specifications for a tourist thing in Milan, which you can see. At this time, in the Italian peninsula, there are 200 distinct political entities, and in this area here, and they're mostly at war with each other. This would go on for 350 years after my death. There would be warring factions all the time. Italy wasn't unified until 1860 under Garibaldi, into a bloody civil war, and they've had dozens of governments since, and Italy is not a recognized power because it didn't get its act together soon enough because of these petty arguments. And in 1489, I made a portrait of my Sforza's mistress, who was Cecilia Gallerini, called Lady with an Ermine. And this shows some fascinating characteristics like movement. She is turned to the right, but her body is to the left. This shows movement, and there's chiaroscuro, strong contrast of light and dark to create depth. In addition, her eyes are fixated on Sforza, which means loyalty. A Polish princess actually owned this about 220 years ago and painted it back in the background. So this shows her grace and subtlety in a more natural way. People also don't know that I also painted, well, ermine with an ermine, dogs playing poker, and a velvet Elvis. I made my masterpiece, The Last Supper, from 1495 to 1498 in the Dominican monastery dining room of the Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan. There, I wanted to paint the Last Supper, which was done traditionally for this. These were sketches for the disciples for this. And the idea of nuns or monks eating in the presence of Jesus was a popular one during the day. So this was a subject that was popular. The layout was mathematical. There was over 50 rectangles in this. I made this not on a fresco, not on wet plaster, because I always take my time when I do something. Rather, I did it on dry fresco called fresco secco, and I used an organic binder for my pigments. The layout of the Last Supper is 15 by 29. It's in a triangular fashion with a light sfumato in the background. And this concerns a vanishing point or a linear perspective drawing, is that I put a nail right in the center where Jesus' head would be and have orthogonal lines coming out from it. And all the disciples are on one line except Judas, who's beneath it because he's the one who rats on it. Called a linear perspective drawing, where it just adds focus into what we're doing with the vanishing point. And also, I used the golden ratio. This is between the length, width, and height of a painting or a building. This concerns how math and art are related, and math using the Fibonacci sequence. 3 and 5 is 8. 8 divided by 5 is 1.6. 5 and 8 is 13. 13 divided by 8 is 1.6. These are proportions pleasing to the eye and make it more aesthetic to look at. You see the same thing in the Parthenon in Athens. They have these golden ratio exactly to these dimensions, even 2,200 years ago. That is how they made that. So math and art are related, and to prove that, we put this into 9 different rectangles, some matching here, or receding rectangles that go off like this. So what is going on in this painting? Everybody wants to know. So this is a dramatic scene in the Bible in Matthew 26:21 and 3 other Gospels of the New Testament, where Jesus in the center tells his surrounding disciples, "One of you will betray me." This is also about the birth of the Eucharist, that is a sacrament, the bread and the wine, Jesus' body and blood. So what's going on here is about betrayal, and betrayal is not done by your worst enemies. It's done by your closest, most intimate relationships that you can have. In addition to that, I'll bet you remember the time that you were betrayed. Many of you got angry. Some of you, you got scared. Some of you were disappointed and sad, just wanted to run away. But all those emotions are valid. And that's what's going on here. These men are in an emotional crisis about this. No one's happy in this painting at all. These men are not saints. There's no halo on them. They're just reacting in a natural way according to their personality. They're in groups of 3, starting from the left, we'll talk about it, and they called Jesus Yahshua, or Jesus, son of Yoseph, in Aramaic. So we'll start from the first group to the left. In the first group, Bartholomew, James, and Andrew look surprised. Their necks are craned, their eyes are trained on him, and their body language is toward the right. Other things are to the right: the hand, the bread, the knife, the hands going down. This painting flows like a river. It all goes to the center. They're surprised. Good reaction. In the second group, Peter in the center appears angry. And John swoons and looks away in despair. Judas feigns surprise because he's the one who rats on Jesus. Yet they're all to the left, leaning to the left, but the lines go to the right. Take a look at the hair that goes down. The hand that goes to the right, the hand here, the bread. And it's sfumato in the background and rectangles. In the center, Jesus is resigned and sad to the fact that he's going to be caught by the Romans and then killed and and tortured and killed in the most gruesome way. And to the right of him are Thomas, James the Greater, and Philip, and look in disbelief. And Philip says, in grief and in anguish, and is 2 steps from tears, he says, "Am I, Lord? Am I the one that did this?" And he feels guilty. And in the center, you have James the Greater who says, "Really? This is really going to happen?" And Thomas puts his index finger up and says, "I doubt this is going to happen," which means doubting Thomas. Yet, all the lines go to the left. Watch the lines. His shoulder goes right up to his face. And his cloth was up here. Blue malachite I used, red cinnabar I used here. Everything goes to the center. And the last group, Matthew, Jude, and Simon, consult each other trying to make sense of this. In the center, Jude said, "Hey, look, I changed my lifestyle for this guy. I gave up my family, friends, loved ones to be with this preacher." I said, "Yeah, I don't understand what's going on. I can't figure it out either," said Matthew. "What is this?" Yet all the lines go to the left. Take a look and they flow right there and according to right here. I tried an experimental technique using temper or oil paint on 2 layers of dry preparatory ground. And my binder was experimental and radical. I used egg yolk and linseed oil. Egg yolk is biological. You're supposed to use that only on wet plaster, fresco. But you can see the lines that go out to infinity of triangular lines. There's 10 of them here, triangle here, rectangle here. And Sforza shields up here. You can see this now for 15 minutes with 30 visitors in a room, and it plays out just like a medieval movie. Because everybody has these emotions that we can relate to. This isn't some phony baloney stuff. We all have had these in the last year, by the way. And so I would show them to other people. And I would show my designs to other people too. I wanted to tell people about this. I was proud, and people had never seen this before. In the center, and we'll talk about this one more time, Jesus in a triangle fashion. Base is this, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. His hands open, his chest is open, and he's vulnerable, which means that you have no choice but to feel sorry for the sacrificial lamb. Now, he's vulnerable, open. So, what I used down here was a bit experimental. After a number of decades, it started to flake off and chip away. By the end of the 15th century, it was unrecognizable. And with tens of thousands of meals made in the last 500 years in the monastery, plus with excessive humidity, Napoleon used it as a stable, and the Allies punched a hole through it in a ceiling back from it. It needed to be restored. Only 40% of it was what I originally had. 60% of it needed to be restored. We spent 21 years doing this. The Italian government spent $1 million lira, and it has been restored to the best of our abilities, obviously repainted. So, it's been restored, but back in the day, Sforza gifted me a vineyard because he liked it so much. So, are there hidden meanings inside the Last Supper? Did I leave fateful, mysterious clues inside there? Well, let's find out. According to this book that I have here, Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code, the answer in the ensuing movie, the answer is yes. Well, of course there is. It's $750 million, can't go wrong for both of them. So, there must be, this all concerns mainly the space between Jesus and John here. There's a V shape here. In the book, it hypothesizes this V could be in the short form of the Holy Grail. The last chalice Jesus drank from, because there's not one at the table. Or it could be the metaphorical womb of Mary Magdalene. And that this isn't John, it's Mary Magdalene, that Jesus and Mary are married, and she's either with child or had child, and the descendants from those children have propagated to be in today's world. At the center of the issue, is this a man or a woman? Well, certainly there's no facial, and there's a silly, by the way, this silly contraption, it was just fake. So, at the center of it, is this a man or a woman? There's no facial hair, the hair is long, and men do not swoon. But the shoulders are wide like a man, and the hands are big. Day one with Verrocchio, I was told that men have 10 to 15% larger proportions in their body size than women do. So that's why, in addition, I use androgynous figures in my paintings, so that it could be a man or a woman at the same time. Yes, Mary Magdalene was there, but to wash feet. That was her job. Was Jesus married? Did he have a wife and kids? Most biblical scholars say no. He was an itinerant preacher. And if he were to have kids and live in today's world, they'd have to go through 130 generations. And we all know when couples get married, some people don't want them, some people can't have them. So that's why it's not very probable. Plus, families didn't begin eating together in social situations and together until the 1700s in Europe. Why, even your pilgrims did the same thing. The men ate separately from the women in 1620. In addition to that, that's a new phenomenon for them getting together like this. And women were not allowed to participate in most religious rituals. Back in the day, and even today, we think women are involved in the Mormon church? No. Catholic church? No. Hindu? Buddhism? Any other of the major religions? Islam? No. In Islam, the men and women pray separately. It's a man's world with religion. Women have no business in the world according to the men in this way. Also, and the most important thing I want to say about this painting is that I was employed to make specific Christian meanings and to convey them to people. I had this plan with Forza. So I'm not going to be pulling a fast one on him just to make some nutball theory. I want to have my integrity. I don't want to be known as a slacker or specific a prankster. I want to keep my job, and I want others to employ me if things don't go right. So I don't want to have any nutball ideas, and I believe in Occam's razor. The simplest answer is the best. So let's get rid of the sensationalism hyperbole. In your day, there's a big tendency toward conspiracy theories because people have lost faith in the institutions they once held high and esteemed. So this all relates to what is art. Art is anything done well in a creative way. Now, it took years and years to be able to paint like I did in the sketch. Got that. So if you want to make a bowl of fruit and your sailboat in the water, that's cool. But do not do this. Do not follow this man, Bob Ross, and his way of painting. This is schlock and kitsch. He painted 30,000 of these paintings. That's not art. That's factory work. This looks like somebody dumped some whipped cream on some blueberries here. It's so rich in detail in landscapes. Don't try to knock out a landscape in 90 minutes following this guy. Yet your newspaper, the Daily Sun, and the Enrichment Academy, they'll give the holy cow to this guy and what he has to say. It's not. It's junk art. Instead, take the time to study something. I spent hours watching birds fly so I can understand them. I watched water for hours. Why would I sit there and watch water? Because I made civil engineering, making canals, locks, and bridges. I had to know how it works. There wasn't a book for me to look at. So I appreciate the patience that you can have and not trying to knock something out in 90 minutes just to have something to hang on your wall. Now I know that it's hard to make a sculpture like this one concerning envy and jealousy. But I do believe in modern art, or regular art, like monk painting, or envy and jealousy depicted in graphic arts. So, if you're talking about something about jealousy and you want to draw it, paint it, sculpt it, whatever, find the fire within. Listen to your inner voice and make it count. Jealousy is one of those things that irritates you like a rat gnawing on your foot. But show what you can. Don't ever sell out. Make the best of it, especially out here in the villages. Make it count. Okay, off the soapbox. So, double helix staircase I invented. This wasn't made till after I died. And being a civil engineer, I had ideas for locks, a bridge that was made without nails, ropes, or mortar. And these are my drawings for them as a civil engineer. I had a plan for these. And I was nicknamed Mancino, or lefty, because I was left-handed. Actually, as ambidextrous, I can write and draw with both hands. Let's see how this happens. Actually, I could draw with one hand and then write a letter with the other hand at the same time. In addition, I could write in mirror handwriting. Why would I write in mirror handwriting in Italian backwards? Because I wanted to protect my work. This is intellectual property. I don't want it falling in someone else's hands. This is a way to ensure that, and I wouldn't smudge the paper this way. And the Holy Inquisition was going on. Would you want your works to be looked at by the Catholic Church? The answer was no. So this is why I did this backwards like this. Not only was a vegetarian, I was a homosexual man. A group of us were arrested, like-minded men, were arrested in 1476 when I was 24 for messing around with a goldsmith. No one showed up for the trial, so we were exonerated. This was common, though, this what you call same-sex or gay relationships, in Florence and in Milan, where I lived. Matter of fact, Florenzer became the German slang for same-sex relationships. And I surrounded myself with beautiful young men that inspired me. No, I didn't abuse them. They were my muse, like Gian Capriati, who was named Sali, had him when he was 10. He would later become my partner in life. Or Francisco Melzi, who was my personal secretary. Yet, if you go 120 miles to the east in Venice, it's all different. It's just the opposite. The Doges in Venice that controlled it for 1,000 years. They would have these little slits that you can see today in Venice. You put a note in there, and you could rat on somebody that was doing something highly criminal or immoral, and the Doges would look at it. If serious enough, they would send you to prison. You'd have to walk across the Bridge of Sighs, and that's where that comes from. Forces fell in 1499, and I went looking for another patron. Went to a small city. They were afraid of being overrun by a Germany invasion, so they wanted me to make a map of the city. I made it from an aerial perspective. And then I went over to Rome, and I had my other patron, who was Cesare Borgia. This guy commanded a papal army of 5,000, and I was appointed as his general architect and engineer. He was the son of Pope Alexander VI, and this guy was bloodthirsty. After a while of working for him, I didn't like him, but I wanted to tell you about him because he had a man in his company called Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote a book about Borgia called The Prince. That's how you get the term Machiavellian. Plus, there was an influential monk, Savonarola. He would tell people, and he had thousands of followers, he'd tell them, get rid of your material possessions and get closer to God that way. That makes a lot of sense. So people burned their works, their paintings, their clothes, their jewelry, and that's how you get the phrase bonfire of the vanities. 1503, I came back to Florence for my second Florence appearance, and I wanted to connect the Arno River with a series of canals that would go into the Mediterranean. In addition, I had a prestigious commission to the Battle of Angahari, which is between Florence and Milan, a dramatic battle that happened, and I had sketches for it. It was on a wall that was 23 high by 68 feet long. But the wall, after time, began to deteriorate, and I started doing it, but I didn't finish it. Other people have done it in roughly my style, triangle shape, roundabout, circle way, as well as horses on their hind legs. This was not completed. Here I am painting and doing my deal. And in 1503, a successful silk and cloth merchant, Francisco Giocondo, wanted me to paint a portrait of his wife, Lisa Giocondo, whose maiden name was Gherardini. She was 24 years old and had 5 kids. And yes, he could afford it. So this was done on poplar wood that was 30 inches high and 21 inches wide. And you can see my style in her painting. The sfumato in the background, roads going to nowhere. She's in a triangle shape, boom, 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 and a 3/4 turn. This is how I painted her, which is what you caught me doing when we first met. And of course she has perfect symmetry because the golden ratio is used. You could put at least 30 triangles here and 12 quadrilaterals in this because of the way it lines up. This is what makes it pleasing. The other reason is her smile, which makes it mysterious and really shows contentment, which is why people like it. Always wondering what she's thinking. The painting was famous for being stolen in the Louvre in 1911 when a Louvre employee took it for 2 years. It was thought Picasso and his friend Apollinaire took it, but not so. Actually, she's an unfinished work. I took her with me everywhere I went. She's my babe. She's in the Louvre. She's the world's most famous painting. She's worth $2.5 billion. She gets 7 million visitors a year, and she has her own room dedicated to her, and it's constantly incredibly crowded in it. This you can see right here. She's so popular, she has her own mailbox. She gets fan mail, love letters, poems, jewelry, and yes, marriage proposals. And of course, if you were to marry her, you'd have a lot of hang-ups and get framed. So I kept her with me. Yes, I do have a lot in common with Pablo Picasso because we mentioned him. We both started out early, did real well. We both surpassed our masters, which both supposedly quit after they saw our works and finished it for them, their first works. Picasso was known for his abstract art that he started in Paris in 1910 with Matisse, and me with my more naturalistic style. Here we are, monuments to me. And yes, of course I knew Michelangelo. He was my contemporary. Actually, his real name is Michelangelo de Ludovico Bonarte Simoni. Yes, we worked on things together. But in those days, it was highly competitive. Very competitive. So we had a bit of a pissing contest between us. But I still admired his work and he liked mine. This is about getting commissions. He was different than I was, and he had a prickly personality. He was a bit tortured and intense, a bit of a loner. His works were magnificent. Actually, his Sistine Chapel took 4 years to make, and he almost crippled himself on scaffolding, standing up for 4 years.